Howdy y'all, and welcome to the Stay Creative Podcast, a show dedicated to celebrating independent artists and sharing their art and story. I have found that when we listen to a person talk about their passion, we can take some of it for our own. So this show is also dedicated to you, the listener, not only becoming a fan of the guest's work, but also taking another step towards growing as an artist and loving the artist you already are. The world is a better place with you and your creations in it, and I am grateful for this time that I get to share my current favorite artists with my future favorite artists. Today I'm talking with two of my talented friends about promoting. They'll each share some essential tips that they have picked up in their experience promoting their own work. And of course, they're also going to share some music. Here at the beginning, you're going to hear a track by our old friend Slackerman, and at the end, you'll hear an unreleased track by Andy Feldman. As always, be sure to check the show notes for links to their work. I'd like to thank you both. Before we get into more of the art and experience and the theme of today's show, I'd like to give each of you a moment to introduce yourself and introduce your project.
I'm Andy Feldman, and I am primarily a pianist. I record a lot of solo piano music, but also some, I guess, just other forms of instrumental music. It can be sort of cinematic, soundscape type stuff. I guess I sort of fit into the neoclassical realm of solo piano music. I feel like I have some jazz influences as well. And I also have played in a few bands locally and kind of just try to collaborate with as many people as I can. Most of the tracks I have coming up are collaboration of some sort. It's always just fun working with other people, and I feel like helps me stay creative and just getting other people's feedback and input. And yeah, it's just fun working with other people too, rather than just sitting by myself at the keyboard.
I personally enjoy both kinds of creating, but there's something that's greater than the sum of its parts when you work with other people, I think. Awesome. Well, hey, Slackerman. Slackerman was the very first guest this show ever had. But for folks who haven't heard that one, Slackerman, tell me about yourself. Tell me about the music you make.
Thank you for inviting me back. And I'm so happy to be back here. It's been a crazy almost 1 year now for me. I started my project around October of 2019. I produce music. I make rock influenced lo-fi. And then there's a little bit of hip hop in there, and it's very heavily influenced by funk. And most of the music that I make is inspired by a comic book that exists only in my head, but I'm actually developing it right now, and it's already slowly coming out on my Instagram. I'm slowly publishing them on webtoons, so they're just like small comic strips, 12 panels per song. It's like a media project called Slackerman. It's like music-driven cartoons.
I'm excited for more of your comic strips. I'm looking forward to when they are all laid next to one another in like a 12-panel strip.
I think there's going to be a total of around 120 panels.
Nice.
All without dialogue. I just don't want to write scripts. So.
Yeah, the music does the talking. Tell me, what are some essential practices for promoting?
First of all is the presentation and the value of your work. If you want to be taken seriously, at least you need to make an effort in setting up how you want your work to be presented. Fill up your profiles, create artworks, stuff like that. And also for value, if you think of it this way, your listeners are your customers. There should be a value for them to look at your work. So there should be a return for them. Because in some ways, they are investing their time on you. Like, if they listen to your music, that's still 3 minutes. So they should be able to, you should be able to give back to them. Another thing is setting up your digital footprint. Basically, what you're trying to do is make your reach as wide as possible. If there's an opportunity for you to set up a profile somewhere, just go ahead and do it. And then if there's an opportunity for you to set up your tags and keywords, which is also very essential, you just do it. Find out where you can publish your work easily, where you can maximize all the free stuff that you can use from all these publishing platforms. There's a lot of them out there. You just need to take advantage of all of them.
Is there a resource online, like a checklist that you trust that people could look at?
I'm writing up something right now for my website to collate all of this, or to collect all of this information that I have gathered over the past few months. So hopefully I can put it up by next week.
Yeah, you have until Saturday when this episode releases.
You want to have like a consistent image that's on all of your sites, and you want to put your music or your art out there as much as possible. But it's kind of weird because at the same time, we're kind of in the world now where I feel like I've maybe come across a band on my Discover Weekly on Spotify or whatever. Maybe they have millions of plays, and I'm like, oh, who are these people? And there's like no bio. They don't have a website. Like, it's probably the easiest to get your music heard than it's ever been. I've kind of focused on Spotify a lot. That's kind of where I have most of my followings and get my most listens. Playlisting is the biggest thing. What's helped is just trying to find some community or some way that, Like Slackerman was saying, like to make yourself of, I guess, use to others too. When I was on SoundCloud mainly, like years ago, there was groups and I was a part of like these piano groups. And now today, I've met a lot of people through, Spotify and Instagram who are in that same genre of music that I play. And we all just kind of help each other out and share info. And I've ended up making my own playlist on Spotify to kind of what Slackerman was saying, like rather than me just asking, hey, can I be on your playlist, or hey, listen to my music, I can also now help other artists be heard. I can put them on my playlist and try to help promote people that I'm friendly with or who send me their music that I find interesting. A lot of it is really just trying to figure out, I guess, what it means to be successful for you. Because like I said, there's always more you can do. You can always put more time or effort into it.
What would you say is the main things to be aware of when you're trying to get your work on the right playlist for the right listener?
The hardest thing at first is laying the groundwork of trying to figure out where your music fits. It's always hard to think about, what genre is my music. For me, it's probably easier playing primarily solo piano music. Solo piano music and instrumental music is kind of a genre of itself right now. Like I have another project that's more indie folk pop, and sometimes I'm like, well, it's not really folk. It's not like... It's easier right now if I go into Spotify and type relaxing piano music. There's a lot of playlists pretty much named exactly that, that my music would fit neatly into. Figuring out who other artists are out there that sound like me and looking them up. And on Spotify, you can see like what their top 5 playlists are that their music is discovered on. And it's kind of like a little investigative process of trying to figure out what playlists and what genre are best for my songs. Thankfully, a lot of these curators are fellow musicians, and some are just people who just love to hear music and are happy to help you out. Some of these people get so many requests, and even just with my smaller playlists, I get a lot of people reaching out. You just have to be nice. You want to be personable and treat them like a real person rather than, copying and pasting something or just sending them a link. It's really like a job interview is really what it is.
Yeah. Bring the same level of professionalism to conversating with someone about adding this song to their playlist as you would have in making the actual song.
It's not like sexy to think of your music or your art as, a business. I sometimes come across people who are kind of wary to do that, or some bands don't want to think of themselves as a business. But I feel like the best way to be successful is really to have a plan. When you finish your song, that's like your work's just starting, There's so much stuff to do.
Yeah, making the song was the fun part.
Right.
Like there's work that comes after that in order to make it its best self.
I mean, some of it is just making sure you have a product that's finished and that, you've gotten feedback on it. But, obviously music's subjective, so you kind of have to shoot your shot and kind of go for it.
What about you, Slackerman? Would you say there are any pitfalls that you found in your own time or that you see as common mistakes being made?
Not setting up their profiles properly. I think a lot of people just put up their music and then they just wait for the fire, They just wait for the bomb to blow up, which is not really gonna happen most of the time. People need to be accepting of that. People expect too much from their work.
What do you mean by that?
Like I said, they're waiting for the bomb to blow up, and if they submit it to a curator and it got rejected, sometimes they feel bad about it. So, like what Andy was saying, music is very subjective, and you need to be able to embrace the idea that not everyone will appreciate your work.
Yeah.
The reason why you're setting up your profiles, you're setting up your digital footprint, you're setting up your branding so that you will be able to attract the right people to listen to your work or to view your work. This is why those things are important. You want it to be heard. That's why it's up there. Otherwise, if you don't put the effort, it's just gonna sit there.
Yeah. Both of you have already provided some pretty practical thoughts and steps to me where I currently am in my desire for people to hear the things I've worked on. But what would you say for a person who has not started at all? What do they need to wake up tomorrow and have on their to-do list?
Depends on where you first publish your work. If you first publish your work on Buzzsprout, then you will be able to attract the right people. If you first publish your work on Slackerman and Andy Feldman, then you will be able to attract the right people. If you first publish your work on GMills, then you will be able to attract the right people. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, let's say if you first publish it on SoundCloud, figure out the tools, the free tools that you have there, and then just work on it. You can do it slowly, you can do it maybe 1 hour a day. After that, you move on to the next platform. If you feel like you need a YouTube, go ahead and YouTube account. You won't believe I even set up Daily Motion.
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah, yeah,
but yeah, I mean that one is not really moving, but it's just that it's good that it's out there, it's like
yeah,
it
yeah.
adds up to the digital footprint. You go slowly, you take your time with it. There are a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
platforms out there that you can really take advantage of, and they all have free tools that can help you out. If you cannot figure out what to do with the free tools, there's always YouTube to help you out with it.
Yeah, I would just put it out there, get a distributor like DistroKid or, there's tons of other ones out there, and make sure you just get your music out there on Spotify and Apple Music and, the other streaming sites of the world. But, it's always good to get feedback early on too, like find people that you can trust who, will give you honest feedback. It depends what your personal goals are too. Maybe you just want to, finish your music and get it out there.
When I first put my music on DistroKid, it was so I could listen to my music on Spotify. That was the whole reason.
Yeah.
What are the things that you have discovered are essential to making good music?
I guess there's just a point in time where I'll feel inspired or where I don't feel pressure to create or put something out, or I'll just maybe sit down at the piano and hit record and not have a plan and just kind of see where it goes. I feel like sometimes my best tracks come out of that, where I'm not putting pressure on myself and I'm just kind of getting back to why I love music in the first place. Kind of like Slackerman was saying about what your expectations might be. And it's good to have expectations, obviously. It can become like a negative thing. I feel like when I first put my music out there and I got like one listener, I was like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever, And
Yeah.
then, I got 100 listeners and then maybe some more and more. And then it can be like this weird addictive thing where you're like, oh, now like I'm always wanting more. Like it's never like, when do you feel satisfied, Like
Yeah,
what's
yeah.
your end goal? Like why are you making the music in the first place? Have you guys seen the movie Soul, the new Pixar
I
movie?
just watched it. Yeah, two
Oh yeah,
days
Haven't
ago.
seen it yet.
I loved it. But there's a scene in there that I feel like I related to a lot where I don't know, I guess this is a spoiler alert maybe. um where the guy's a pianist and he plays a big gig and it's kind of like his dream come true, and at the end he's kind of like, so what's next? And his band leader's like, well, we just do this again the next day and over, and he
Yeah.
feels like a little deflated. I think it's because he like built it up to be this big thing, and he likes music, like he's a teacher and he enjoys teaching kids, but I think like it became this thing where he felt like he had to keep going farther and farther, and I guess he can get away from you getting caught up how many likes or streams or comments am I getting, and rather than just being like, I'm making music because I like to.
Yeah, yeah. The thing that's going to resonate with the listener most is hearing somebody enjoy what they're doing. If you get to a point where you're making good music, you must have enjoyed the process of learning to do that. So just constantly go back to that enjoyment.
For me, it's more of I'm more focused on answering the question, is this really me? Do I really want to do this? Do I really want to sound like this?
Mm, mm.
So I'm more focused on having an identity. The thing is what I'm trying to push for originality at least.
Yeah.
So I'm much more driven doing that. I still have other projects. I have one project upcoming that it's a very guitar driven rock album, but yeah, I'm just much more focused on like you said, when they hear this, they would know it's Slackerman,
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm much more focused on that. Like once I feel like I'm satisfied with how this sounds, I just put it out there, and then I just tell people, hey, you can listen to it here. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Mastering your art is mostly about mastering what you want to make. more so than it is memorizing every sound the guitar can make. It's learning how you want to play guitar best. That's what brings people not only to enjoy your music, but to study it, to use it as inspiration for their own thing.
Like you listen to punk rock a lot. There's a reason there, right? Like I used to listen to punk rock as well. I still love it. It's just that I stepped away from it. Maybe I will make a punk rock record somewhere someday. Everybody has their different tastes. It's kind of like a spectrum, and we try to find our place in that spectrum.
I personally feel like I need to hurry up and end this conversation so I can start fixing my online presence. We have demystified some of the steps between 0 and 1, but we've also, and this is more essential to me, we have taken away that clout of guilt or embarrassment of wanting to promote our work. That's something that artists can never say too often to one another. It's okay. It's okay if you want to get paid a little bit, like somebody brought up earlier, playing for exposure. I think that was you, Slackerman, talking before we started recording. But, like it's okay if we want to promote our work well. It's okay if we send emails asking to put on a playlist, as long as we're okay hearing no, as long as our entire ego is not wrapped up in it.
Actually, if you try to market your music, you would be surprised how much you would learn from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if you try to market your work or your art online, you would be surprised how much essential skill sets you are developing. Then this was something that I found out when I was doing this. It's just that when I was working in my previous job, I only did graphics most of the time, and I always wanted to be involved in the deeper level. Basically, I'm touching the deeper levels of marketing right now.
Yeah.
And now I'm doing this. I mean, it will not guarantee you success or like a blow up, but at least you're slowly building up your audience.
It's important not to, like we're saying, you shouldn't feel bad about promoting your music, but also, if you don't want to, that's fine too. It's always good to just try to find the balance. I think I focus on playlisting, and I kind of know how to do that, I feel like, at this point, and that's kind of what I focus on. But there's always I have 0 videos, or I feel like there's always more content I could put out there on my Instagram or whatnot. But it's this weird balance, because on one level, personally, I'm kind of trying to get off social media somewhat, and then it's well, I also need to, I guess, promote my music, but I also don't want to annoy my friends all the time and just be hey, here's my song. But,
yeah.
But so I feel like I kind of focus on playlisting. That's what I'm comfortable with, and there's always going to be more you can do, but maybe a good place to start is to pick something and do that well.
more time, I'd like to thank Andy and Slackerman for sharing their music and their experience and, part of their story with us today. I think what they have learned is essential, is of course personal to their own path, but also there are tips in there that all of us can use, like knowing your work, knowing who is going to enjoy your work by experimenting, by testing, by looking around, by finding a community, and by collaborating, even on the promotional effort. And of course, I want to repeat again that it is essential that we know what our goals are if we're going to promote well. Your goals may not be the same as someone else's, but you may have tips from your experience pursuing your individual desired results that you can share with one another. And finally, one more time so everybody definitely hears it, there is no reason to be ashamed, embarrassed, or shy away from promoting your work to others. Putting yourself into your art, working on something so that it feels finished and prepared and ready for you, that is always going to be an effort to connect with people and to share what is inside you. And when you find the right audience, that gift will be accepted gratefully and graciously every time. If you like what you heard today, you can find links for the artist and this show in the show notes. Be sure to go and listen, like, and follow the artist where you can so the algorithm gods are beneficial for them. And share this show, leave a review, like or comment, whatever you can do on the streaming service you use. It would mean a lot to me for the sake of the show, but it would also mean a lot for this show's ability to promote these artists well, to honor the time they are sharing with us, and to love independent music a little bit better. But of course, your time is the first and best gift you can give, so thank you very much for listening. I hope to share more of that time very soon. But until then, please stay courageous, stay curious, and stay creative.